Hello, my name is Anna Ivanova and I'm a watercolor artist. Usually, watercolor fans know me as a person who paints a lot of ballet, portraits, horses, and so on. And now let's try to do not have heart attack. Just have a look at it. Yeah, not bad. Yeah, and it's better to have the drawing quite, dark because now I'm going to cover all her face with this tone, so it's better to know where the eyes are or nose and so on. A bit of wisteria again. Again, Rosienna and Opera. A bit of wisteria. More Opera. And now it looks scary because the wet technique is too bright when it's wet and actually quite pale when it's dry. This is the minus. This is the minus of the technique and of this paper because it's quite raw. And my magic brush is coming. More sienna. A bit of wisteria. And a bit of blue gray. And again a bit of blue gray. I don't say the eyeballs and even the highlights there because the eyes are in the shadow. You can compare with the light parts of her forehead and you can see the difference. Now I'm going to make it a little bit softer. And let's continue to work. More raw sienna and a bit of blue-gray. Raw sienna, again, opera and a bit of scarlet. I think it looks really scary. Even there is a silence in the in the chat. Just wait.
Yeah, people have commented that you are so brave that they're impressed, and that it's a very good lesson to see how bold you are in the first with the first color. And other people might be used to using several layers before they dare that.
That's why I thought that the wet technique is really cool. I mean, because it can help you to create really saturated and so bright pictures at one layering quite fast. And when you afraid something, this technique is good. It's just you need to begin because you can't stop. Everything is running. It's like we have a joke about not only watercolor techniques, about the things when you need to begin and make it with a lot of braveness and to make it fast. And they say that uh, madness and courage is everything for us. But it's really fun. I like watercolor technique because in this way, it's yeah, in some kind it's unpredictable, but also I think the art, the the masterpieces of art, they were actually some mistakes, not usual ones. So I think it's cool to try, at least to try. I like this course because it gives me a huge possibility as an artist and as a tutor to show all my capacity as a watercolor artist. And because I paint not only ballet, I paint a lot of themes, and I can show how to apply a lot of my tips and some particularities of technique. That's why, some kind of madness helps. And at the same time, if you want to, how to say, to forget about your, I don't know, some problems at work, or I don't know, whatever problems, just begin to work with this technique because you have no time to think about something else except the process because everything is running. Anti-stress therapy. And now I'm trying to add some details, like her eyebrows, eyelids. I don't save the lips because they are darker than the main tone of the skin. And actually, this color is a purple gray. And actually, when it's drying, you can see that it's changing its tone to much lighter one. And here we have a lot of reflexes from her clothes. That's why her face actually has this rose tone as well. Kind of expressionism.
We have a question from Valeri.
Mhm.
What brush you are using? Is it a specific brush that you can find online?
No.
And
Mm,
if it's not, what should we look for in a brush so that it works for this technique?
some you can use our natural some Kolinsky brush. Actually, it's Kolinsky one, Chinese. But as you can see, I use it like a flat one. So you can use or imitation of squirrel or Kolinsky natural. Flat one like 13 millimeters, something like this. I think Skoda have something has like something like this, or Da Vinci also. So with Chinese brushes, it's quite difficult question because there are huge amounts of them, and you need to try a lot of them to choose a special one because it's always unpredictable. For example, these brushes I bought them many years ago, and now the quality is totally different, and I don't like it. That's why I don't recommend it. The quality of brushes such as Da Vinci or Rublev or um, Skoda, they have some kind of stability, so it's not surprise. If you buy one good, it will be good for always, I think. But with these brushes, it's like always a surprise. And don't forget about the ears. I always forget about the ears and neck, and sometimes they look quite, cut. It's better to paint everything at the same time, but of course, if we are in hurry like me right now, so it's better to make it fast. Smile. And one very important thing about the child portrait is to make all emotions, all mimics on wet surface, because when you paint it too, how to say, too, so if the brush strokes are too hard, too obvious, they make too sharp, so they make the face look older, because usually children faces or the faces of young people, they're really round, very soft, and if we make it a bit more detailized or over detailized, so the a child gets older and older. That's why I do my best to paint it as soft as I can. And ears, of course. The combination of the colors is always the same. Rose sienna, opera of transparent pyro orange, and it depends if I want to have something more reddish, I use more opera. If I want to have some more orange, so I use more orange. And then I keep working with this area as well. Now I need to finish the neck. Otherwise, it will look like some, doll with artificial face, head. And now I'm going to switch on another dark brown. The name is Van Dyke Brown by Core, or you can use some burnt sienna if you don't have exactly this one Dyke brown, because this one is special. That's why I use it. It has the reddish tint, and I really like it. Other Van Dykes, they have more greenish tint. And violet helps us to show the strong sunlight. These violet shadows function very well for this. And again, I make softer just to come here later to continue my work. Now again, adding Van Dyke Brown and a bit of alizarin. And again, a bit of dioxazine. And now a bit of wisteria with a blue-gray. With a bit of raw sienna. Wait. Wait. So something like this.
Wonderful. That was fascinating to watch. We have a question from Linda. How would you soften her eyes? And we had another question. Is it possible to lift highlights if we miss some highlights, for instance, in the eyes?
Yes, you can lift it when it's not that bright like she has. You just can wash with the usual uh, brush. But for example, when it's super bright, like like a white on the under sunshine, just use titanium white or Chinese white. There is no problem.
Marlene is asking, how to make the girl look like a little girl and not an older woman? And that was something a couple of people wrote that their version looked older. What are the reasons for that? What could be the
Um,
reasons for that?
we should avoid sharp shapes because children has really round faces, round features, round emotions. So of course they have much more mimics. But if we paint every single one, so we will get an old man actually in the end. So just and the wet technique helps to make it because everything you put, all brush strokes, they are very soft, and then you can choose which one you can make more exact and which one you just can lose.
So keeping it round and soft.
Round and soft,
Round
yes.
and soft. Wonderful. Few's biggest takeaway is that you can start from light value tone as well as from the darkest values and tone in watercolor. I always think I have to start from light value. Thanks so much. And I think that's a very nice comment that we get to see that there are several ways of doing things.
Yeah, I think that art is quite, different, and the word must is not for art.
Yeah, good point. And it can always be like you must do this if you want to achieve exactly this thing, but you don't have to achieve it's exactly that thing. You can do it a completely different way.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
it depends. It always depends. It's not mathematics.
Yes, yes, true, so true. We had a question from Sergey, which I thought was very interesting. It is, Anna, what level of graphic details do you usually do in the sketch? Because in this sketch, you shared that where the darks were, there were quite a lot of
No,
detail.
very general ones. Very general ones. It's just because the face doesn't have so many petals like a rose,
No.
and just not to be confused in the rose. So that's why, yeah, I made some pencil sketch, and that's all.
And usually, how much detail would you say that you use when you
Not
paint
many,
yourself?
just the eyes, the level of the nose, the level of the lips, because usually I cover all face. It doesn't matter, face or any subject, whatever. I cover it all with first wash, and usually I don't see too much there.
Yeah, yeah, because
So
it's so dark.
it's helpless to draw many details, just the main ones.
And we had a question from Lori. Does the surface under the paper make a difference in how long the paper stays wet?
Yes, of course. If you wet just the face surface, so it dries much faster and it makes wavy.
Yeah, but the question was also what you have, the board you have, if it's
Ah, the
whether
board.
it's
Yes,
water.
mine is waterproof, of course.
Yeah.
It should be plastic or glass or plastic glass, something like this.
And we had also a question from someone living in a warm country. Does this technique work for over 30 Celsius degrees? So when it's warm.
No, once I spent a summer in Spain and it was disaster. It didn't work at all.
So we need
Now,
to work with much smaller parts. Or what is
yes,
the solution?
yes, no, yeah. This is like that because now in Madrid it's like +6 in the morning. So in my native city, I'm from Russia. It's warmer than here.
Ah, that's so
Look
funny.
at me.
Completely upside down.
Yeah, yeah, but this is the perfect weather to paint big watercolors
Yeah,
because now
yeah,
I'm painting to watercolors like 1 meter, no,
yeah.
1 meter to 80,
Perfect.
and it's perfect. It's cold, wet, nothing is drying. I love
And,
Spain.
and do you always wet the entire front and the entire back? Always, 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 or only when you paint bigger parts?
No, always, always. All paper is wet, totally wet. Even if I paint a tiny detail, the paper should be wet. All.
Okay,
Totally.
to avoid
Yeah,
buckling.
yeah, because even the color, how to say it? Even the reaction of the color with the paper is different when the paper is dry or paper is wet. So I prefer to work the same way always, just to
Okay.
avoid these differences.
And if you have already painted the eyes and they're pretty dark, and you're going over with a second wash of water because you want to increase some dark, some shadows, can you do that? Are you very like careful not to move the darks, or how do you approach that when you work in several layers if you have to do that?
The eyes will be the final detail in this case.
So you will not go over them with water,
Mhm,
basically.
mhm.
So if it's not something super dark, don't go over it with water.
Yeah.
Only if
Mhm.
it's like skin and but
Only, yeah,
part of hair
first
and
the
the
skin
darkest.
tone, big forms, and only in the end all details.
Perfect. That was very good advice, I think, because I think that people can easily otherwise have these smudgy eyes and like smoky eyes, which is not perfect for a little girl. Do you always start from object, or sometimes do you start with the background? What are your like go-to strategies when do you paint the background?
When I paint landscapes. The first thing that I paint it's the background, and then I come closer, closer, closer. But when I paint people or animals, for me it's very important to paint the faces, and I pay so much attention to it, and then I just don't care,
Okay.
like I did it today.
Yeah, perfect. So when the main subject
Fast and
is in
furious.
the front, you start in the front, and the main point of the painting is the landscape, you start in the back. Ah, very clear advice. Um,
Thank you.
Let me see. Um, we had another question. You have said Hanemule, you have said Sennelier. We had a question from the smoothness perspective. Do you know, have you tried Bao Hong, or do you have any other?
No, Bao Hong S8, more or less. I like it. I mean, of course, it's a bit harder. How to say it? It's more tense than Hanemule watercolor or Sennelier because they're like tissue. They're like clothes. You know, when it's wet, it's very similar to to just. To these materials, and Bao Hong is more tense. It's
Harder surface.
yes, harder surface.
Okay, thank you for that. And yes, we have actually answered lots of them, but we have a question from Zora. Do you avoid granulating colors when painting faces? To avoid.
Actually, in the technique that I usually work, granulation doesn't work at all. So I can use granulating colors, for example, raw sienna, lemon yellow, and blue gray. They are granulating,
But you're
but
not working with cerulean or ultramarine?
no, I mean that if you don't have a big water wash done before, so it doesn't work like this. In my technique, even if the color granulates,
It will not be very
it doesn't
granular.
show. Yes, it
Yeah.
doesn't show because I don't use
Yeah.
too much water.
Yeah. Very good point. So if you use the same color in the background, it might granulate more than in the face.
Yes, yeah, exactly. If for example, I cover all the face with the water and then I put a lot of pigments, of course it granulates.
Yes.
It,
And
it yes, it just functions another way.
And now I just realized we have spent 2 hours and 35 minutes together. So even though we didn't go through all the questions, I want to thank you for asking those questions. I hope you still got value from these 2.5 hours of workshop, of learning from Anna. And let me just see if there's anything in the chat that I just, yeah, thank you from Margaret, thanks from Audrey. Ingeborg says, danke vielmals, so interessant. Kina says, thank you so very much for sharing your artistic knowledge and how-tos for creating portraits. And yes, Nadine, we did answer that complete. And Carmen, thank you so much for a lovely session. It was one of the most interesting sessions I have attended. So of course I purchased the course. Oh,
Thank you.
congratulations to you, Carmen. And now just huge thank yous, Anna, for sharing so much.
You are welcome. Invite me again.
And what are your final thoughts to someone who feels like, wow, this looks fun but also challenging? What is some emotional tips for preparing ourselves for this challenging but also rewarding process of painting portraits?
Now, my point of view is always, oh, difficult. Okay, I mean,
That's a
I like
perfect.
challenges, you know. My Everest, it's not conquisted yet, so.
I love that. Is it challenging? I'm in. Perfect advice for all of us. That's how we grow. That's how we grow.
Yeah.
So huge thanks to everyone who was here, and huge thanks to you, Anna, for sharing so generously and so much, and also for just showing that it's possible to paint in this style that you shared with us today.
Thanks, everybody. It was nice.
Thank you.
Bye bye.